Welcome to our deep dive. Today, we're jumping into the 7th chapter of Isaiah.
Yeah, and it really throws you right into the deep end, doesn't it? A real moment of crisis.
Absolutely. We're talking about King Ahaz of Judah, and he is facing a, terrifying situation.
Yes, putting it mildly, you've got this alliance forming against him, King Rezin of Aram.
Yeah.
That's Damascus way up north.
Right. And he's teamed up with King Pekah of Israel, the northern kingdom, Ephraim, son of Remaliah, the text often calls him.
Exactly. And these two, who weren't always friends themselves, mind you, are now united against Judah. It's a big deal.
So what's the game plan here? What are they actually trying to do, according to the chapter?
Oh, it's ambitious. And really frightening for Ahaz. The text is quite explicit.
It lays it out.
Yeah. March on Jerusalem, tear Judah apart, divide the spoils, basically.
Divide the kings.
Between Aram and Israel, yeah. And then the final touch, install their own guy, son of Tabeel.
A puppet king. So not just a border skirmish. This is existential.
Totally. Regime change. Wipe Judah off the map as an independent entity. And Ahaz's line.
Wow. Okay, so when news of that plan hits Jerusalem, how do people react? The text gives us a pretty visceral image.
It really does. It says, when they heard Aram and Ephraim were together, the heart of Ahaz and the heart of his people were shaken.
Well,
as the trees of the forest are shaken by the wind. Just absolute terror, uncontrollable fear gripping everyone from the top down.
you can almost feel it, can't you? That sense of instability, like the ground's moving.
Utterly undone. Complete panic.
And it's right there in that moment of peak fear that God steps in.
Precisely. The text says, then the Lord said to Isaiah, time for divine intervention. Isaiah gets his instructions.
Go meet Ahaz.
Yep. Go find the king.
And the location for this meeting is weirdly specific.
It is, isn't it?
Yes.
At the end of the aqueduct of the upper pool, on the road to the washerman's field.
So not the throne room.
No, much more practical. Maybe Ahaz is checking the water supply, vital for a siege. Or inspecting defenses outside the walls.
Yeah. Right, grounding this big divine moment in a very real-world, anxious setting.
Exactly. And Isaiah doesn't go by himself.
Ah, yes, he brings his son, Shir-Jeshub.
Which is fascinating. The text doesn't spell out why right there, but that name.
It means something significant, doesn't it?
Huge. A remnant shall return. So maybe he's a living object lesson for Ahaz. Like, even facing this, a remnant survives.
Or maybe a warning that only a remnant makes it back.
Could be both, yeah. Judgment and salvation kind of intertwine depending on how Ahaz responds. His name is packed with meaning.
So Isaiah, with his son, whose name is a prophecy, confronts the king, whose heart is shaking like a leaf. What's the message, the immediate word?
It's straight to the point, tackling the fear head on. 4 commands, really.
Okay.
Be careful, keep calm, and don't be afraid, don't lose heart. It's all about regaining composure, finding stillness, trusting.
Stop panicking, essentially.
Right. And then it addresses the source of the panic, these 2 kings. But the description, it's almost dismissive.
How so?
Calls them 2 smoldering stubs of firewood.
Smoldering stubs.
And they're already mostly burnt out. Lots of angry smoke, maybe, but no real fire left to destroy anything. All bluster, no real power.
So they look scary, but God's perspective is they're ineffective, at least for this plan.
Exactly. That's the divine assessment. They won't achieve their goal against Judah.
So the promise regarding this specific plot is absolute.
Unequivocal. The text says it will not take place, it will not happen. Period. Their grand plan to carve up Judah, divinely canceled.
Doomed to fail.
Right. No matter how terrifying it seems to Ahaz right now.
And the text gives a reason why, linking it to their actual spheres of influence.
It does. It says, look, the head of Aram is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is only Rezin.
Okay.
And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is only Ramaphthei's son. It's like saying their authority is limited. It stops at their borders, basically.
Their mandate doesn't extend to conquering Jerusalem against God's will.
That seems to be the implication. Their power has limits.
Interesting. But then, right after dismissing Ephraim's immediate threat, there's this other prophecy about them, a long-term one.
Yeah, it's almost like saying, don't worry about Pekah now because Ephraim's got a much bigger problem coming later.
What's the prophecy?
It says, within 65 years, Ephraim will be too shattered to be a people. Gone. Wiped out as a distinct nation.
65 years, that's very specific, way beyond Ahaz's immediate worry.
Exactly. It points to a much later total destruction, likely referencing the Assyrian deportations that eventually scattered the northern tribes.
Okay, so you've got this promise. This specific attack will fail. But then comes the condition. A big if.
Crucial part. Absolutely critical. The message ends with this: if you do not stand firm in your faith, you will not stand at all.
Wow. So deliverance isn't automatic.
It seems linked to Ahaz's response.
Oh.
He needs to trust God's promise, not panic, and say, run off to make a deal with Assyria for help.
Which was tempting for kings back then.
Very tempting. So faith is presented as the key to the kingdom's stability against this threat. Stand firm in faith, or you don't stand. Period.
That puts a lot on Ahaz. Well, the conversation doesn't quite end there, does it? Even with that promise and condition laid out.
No, fascinatingly, the Lord speaks to Ahaz again. Directly.
Offering something quite extraordinary.
An unsolicited offer. Yeah. A sign. Ask the Lord your God for a sign.
And the scoop is huge.
Ask it either in the deepest depths or in the highest heights. Basically, name your miracle. Anything you want to prove this is real, to remove all doubt.
An incredible offer of grace, really. Tangible proof being offered.
Absolutely. But Ahaz, he refuses.
What does he say?
He says, I will not ask. I will not put the Lord to the test.
Which, on the surface, sounds really pious, like he's quoting scripture.
Right. Deuteronomy 6.16. But context is everything. God just offered him a sign, invited him.
So refusing isn't piety here.
Isaiah certainly doesn't see it that way. Many interpreters think it's Ahaz dodging confirmation. Maybe he'd already decided to call Assyria. He didn't want a divine sign that might obligate him to just trust God.
Avoiding a truth that demands faith, not politics. So how does Isaiah react to this refusal?
He's sharp. Really sharp. And not just at Ahaz, but the whole house of David, the royal line.
What does he say?
Is it not enough to try the patience of men? Will you try the patience of my God also?
Ooh, strong words.
Yeah, it shows the refusal is seen as deeply frustrating, almost insulting to both human and divine patience. It's resistance, not reverence.
So Ahaz won't ask for the sign God offered. What happens then?
The Lord gives one anyway, unsolicited.
And this is where we get that really famous verse.
Exactly. Isaiah declares, therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel.
Emmanuel, meaning God with us, a hugely significant name in prophecy.
Enormous significance, debated for centuries, but in the immediate context of Isaiah 7.
It relates back to Ahaz's crisis.
Directly. The sign is tied to the timing of the threat he's facing.
And there's that detail about what the child eats. Curds and honey.
Yes. He will eat curds and honey when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right.
Which sounds like abundance, maybe. Land of milk and honey kind of thing.
Potentially, yeah. But it's linked specifically to his age of moral discernment.
And crucially, that age becomes the timeline for Ahaz's deliverance.
Crystal clear connection. The text says, but before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the two kings you dread will be laid waste.
So before Emmanuel reaches that age, Aram and Israel, the smoldering stubs, will be dealt with, their threat neutralized.
Exactly. The sign of an annual, whatever its deeper meanings, serves here as a clock, guaranteeing the swift end of the current danger Ahaz fears.
Okay, so we've gone from terror to reassurance to this Emmanuel sign confirming the imminent end of the threat. It feels like we should be wrapping up on a positive note.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But the chapter pivots. Hard.
Uh-oh.
Almost immediately after confirming those two kings are finished, it describes a different future, a much darker one.
A different enemy.
A vastly more dangerous one. The text says, the Lord will bring on you and on your people and on the house of your father a time unlike any since Ephraim broke away from Judah.
Worse than the civil war that split the kingdom.
That's what it says. Unprecedented hardship. He will bring the king of Assyria.
Assyria. Okay, they were the regional superpower. Brutal. Ruthless. Not smoldering stubs at all.
Not even close. This is the real deal. And notice, it's the Lord will bring them. This isn't just politics. It's presented as a divine judgment.
And the imagery used for Assyria, it's intense. Very different from the firewood stubs.
Night and day. It talks about the Lord whistling for them.
Whistling.
Yeah, for flies from the distant streams of Egypt and for bees from the land of Assyria.
Flies and bees. So like swarms.
Exactly. Innumerable, pervasive, settling everywhere. Ravines, crevices, bushes, water holes, an inescapable infestation covering the whole land.
That sounds awful, contaminating everything.
A sense of total invasion. And then there's the other metaphor, maybe even more brutal.
Which is?
In that day, the Lord will shave with a razor hired from beyond the river.
Hired?
Yeah, like a mercenary tool, with the king of Assyria, the head and the hair of the legs, And also remove the beard.
Shaving everything bare, that sounds like complete humiliation and stripping away.
Total devastation. Shaving was a sign of deep dishonor, loss of status.
Mm.
Applied to the land, it means stripped bare. Resources gone, people gone. The Assyrian razor is effective, thorough. It consumes.
So a complete contrast. One threat dismissed, another, future threat depicted as utterly devastating. A totally different kind of divine action.
From warding off an ineffective foe to unleashing a consuming judgment.
And the chapter goes on to paint a picture of the land after this Assyrian razor has done its work. What does it look like?
It's bleak. Really bleak. A picture of loss and regression. It says a survivor might only have a young cow and 2 goats.
Just bare subsistence level.
Pretty much. Drastic reduction. Poverty.
But then it mentions curds and honey again, just like with Emmanuel.
It does. Because of the abundance of the milk they give, he will have curds to eat. All who remain in the land will eat curds and honey.
But the context here is totally different, isn't it?
Completely. This isn't about a child growing up in a land promised deliverance. This is the diet of the few survivors in a desolate landscape.
Where milk from those few animals is maybe all there is.
Exactly. It's sustenance and scarcity. Survival, yes, but amidst ruin, a stark contrast to what it might imply elsewhere.
And the land itself, the fields and vineyards.
Gone back to wilderness.
Yeah.
In every place where there were 1,000 vines worth 1,000 silver shekels, there will be only briars and thorns.
Productive land turning into useless scrub.
Right. So overgrown and dangerous.
Dangerous.
Yeah, it says, men will go there with bow and arrow, for the land will be covered with briars and thorns. You need weapons just to enter what used to be farmland.
Because of the wilderness, not enemies.
Exactly. And even the good hills, the ones carefully cultivated.
What about them?
Abandoned. As for all the hills once cultivated by the hoe, you will no longer go there for fear of the briars and thorns.
Too wild, too thorny.
They will become places where cattle are turned loose and where sheep run. Just rough grazing. Civilization pushed back, productivity gone.
Wow. What a journey in one chapter. You start with this intense, immediate fear of Rezin and Pekah.
Hearts shaking like trees.
Then God steps in, calls them smoldering stubs, promises they'll fail, gives the Emmanuel sign as a short-term guarantee.
Right. Deliverance is coming quickly from that threat.
But then, boom, this massive pivot to a future judgment by Assyria, the hired razor.
Bringing unprecedented devastation.
Leaving behind this desolate land of thorns where the few survivors eat curds and honey out of necessity.
It really shifts through different layers, doesn't it? Immediate crisis, immediate promise needing faith, and then this looming, far more severe consequence down the line, perhaps linked to the failure of that faith.
It definitely makes you think. The contrast between the stubs and the razor is so stark.
And the quick end promise for one versus the long-term devastation from the other.
And using curds and honey in such different ways, once potentially linked to promise, later clearly tied to desolation, it really forces you to consider the different dimensions of what's being communicated here about trust, judgment, and what survival even looks like.
Yeah, how do all these specific images and timelines weave together? It leaves you pondering the path from immediate fear to this very different, almost inevitable seeming future fate described right here in Isaiah 7. A lot to chew on.